Hey guys, so I have been asked for my actual job power rankings tier list, and I will give it here. No fluff, my ranking, no jokes, and a briefing of why I've given it the rank I have. And this video is going to be specifically healers, because frankly healing is both PvE and PvP against your teammates, which has a lot of intricate details that shift things around a lot. Now I want to be clear on this, and I want to really establish it very clearly, is the power rankings for this video is for Party Finder, or mostly Party Finder raid content to be specific. Power rankings of jobs 100% do change depending on which type of content you're participating with and with who. And I'll be boring and spoiler that video. All healers are fantastic in a coordinated static raid setting. Not a single one is below S tier this patch in a coordinated group without question. They're seriously, honestly all great. You literally cannot go wrong with any healer right now. So without further ado, it's time for the tier list. Remember, this is Party Finder queues. It's out in the wild, which for healers is a trip. So first up is Astrologian, and Astrologian is getting a solid B. Obviously, Astrologian can do healing though, guys. Astrologian is a massively, incredibly powerful healer, and let literally no one tell you otherwise. It's amazing, but Astrologian is a victim of their own style in that providing cards to pugs that may or may not utilize the buffs often feels terrible. Out in PF, I've done it myself so many times where it's like, oh god, why did I go ask? No one's helping me. And Divination, I want to be clear, is an amazing ability, providing a tremendous amount of party burst. We have seen it be used effectively through the years. Throw out cards on a Dark Knight during their opener or a Ninja in burst and just watch the numbers go ballistic. It's incredible. But, and it is a massive Nicki Minaj size, but in a Party Finder situation where your team's only melee has weakness, oh, that sucks ass as an Astrologian. And let's be real, this is a problem of any job that gives a lot of buffs to allies, whether it's a DPS, whether it's a healer. Tanks don't do that, and I suppose that keeps all the tanks safe. But more than any other healer, Astrologian is getting slammed into the ground by this fact. Like, if we were speaking of comparing healers directly, specifically from the stat in pugging, I'd put Ast in C. There wouldn't be a question. I might even put it in D. But there is a lot more to healing than that, thankfully. Now, for anyone who's played the Astro, you already know this. The Astro's healing kit is extensive, and they have like a tool for literally every situation. When I go onto Astro, I'm just like, okay, I have this for single target healing, this kind of healing, that kind of healing, so many tools. But when pushed hard in pugs, and unfortunately more often than I'd like, I find myself absolutely pushed to the wall. Actually, that's not necessarily true. I usually find that the more interesting situations because I'm like, oh, now I need to use all these buttons. But sometimes you can find it such a push that you're going to be gasping for cooldowns and using things in ways that you would never expect, like unironically using Neutral Sect in order to just survive a raid-wide in Barbarisha. I speak from experience on that. But Astro cooldowns are incredible. Like, whoever says Macrocosmos is a bad ability should probably be debated or informed of how to like actually use it, because it's absolutely amazing. I would never take that seriously. Macrocosmos is a bad ability. No, it's amazing. Essential Dignity is also another fantastic example. You get 2 charges of a massive single target spike. In pugged PF groups, when a DPS is going to die to like damage, that's amazing. A well-planned horoscope is also brilliant. Neutral Sect with its massive party-wide spike of healing. You're getting that heal over time, you're getting the barriers, and it's all amplified. Healing and barriers, it's bizarrely strong. I still say to this day, Neutral Sect is one of the best abilities in this entire game, bar none. Not to mention an Earthly Star timed right that the co-healer lets you to get off is just stunning. And while that is all positive and earned positives, the problem is now you are an Astrologian in Party Finder. There's another way to say it. Now all of a sudden Lightspeed isn't your Lightspeed button and has become a revive multiple dead party members button. Yes, I speak from painful experience on that one. Arguably this makes Astro a great revive healer coupled with its massive MP reserves with Astrodyne, but still you'd rather not. But coordination with a co-healer for Astrologian specifically also adds a layer of because you really want to be able to pre-plan a Macrocosmos or Earthly Star, and you can have those very easily totally wasted as the co-healer just blasts healing. It's just like blast. It leaves your cooldowns blown, sitting there in a position where you're likely to GCD heal later because they aren't going to be up in the next like 50 seconds because you just used the 60 seconds. I find myself telling newer healers more often than I'd like to have to, that if you see an Earthly Star, trust that Astro will use that when the time is right. I know that asking for trust in the PF is Weird. This is kind of another reason why Astro's a little lower for me. But let's have a direct example of this situation. Let's say that you have Collective Unconscious and Celestial Opposition heal for a lot over time. That's just a fact. They're amazing. But if your co-healer throws down, say, a Numa because they see the party's at low health right now, and you're just like, okay, there's no AoE damage incoming for another, like, 15 seconds, we're okay. Like, you could have let those work. In PF, you don't get that communication, which is so essential. And so since they weren't allowed to tick, you're just getting less value. And now the co-healer's looking at you with no Earthly Star, no Collective Unconscious, and no Celestial Opposition for like another 20 seconds after there's going to be another actual raid wide to resolve the next mechanic. They're going to be like, bro, why aren't you healing, you piece of... I've been in that situation before and I'm like, I'm GCD healing. But you're gonna be maybe having to pop maybe horoscope into a neutral sect. I wanted to say neural sect there, and I'm like, God, cold brain. But aspected Helios in that, so horoscope, neutral sect, aspected Helios. Hope that that's enough to survive. It really gets really muddled, especially if your co-healer won't let your abilities do their job. That's what I'm trying to get at here. But that's also me ignoring the situation of a lot of people standing in bad and a ton of PF carnage. I find Astro can bail groups out using GCD spamming aspected Helios because you are still a pure healer. You still have that baseline, and then normal Helios spam obviously when the heal is up. But in a bad enough group, I am laying there just twitching in horror on Astros, so that's why B tier for Astro. It's amazing healer, absolutely stunning, but in PF, ugh. Now, White Mage. White Mage is an easy S tier. They're fully in control of their own DPS contribution, and the amount of throughput that you can power out is absolutely phenomenal on White Mage. Compared to Astro, I have had a far harder time finding myself out of breath on White Mage. I do not find that the same case with this recording. Okay, I had one joke. But Benediction deletes mistakes. That's an amazing ability. The rework to the Lily system pushed the White Mage to a great spot in Party Finder, and there is no clearer signal of I've got this healing than quite literally a big burst of Plenary Indulgence with the flattest Rapture. There's no question in heal over time effects, it is slammed into your face. If the co-healer doesn't understand that, God help you clearing. But Lilybell Quality of Life just makes it flat out generically useful. Asylum is a marvelously strong cooldown. I don't see it used nearly enough. Same with Aquavale and Divine Benison. That's a ton of padding. And if you know that someone is going to take damage in bad, it can save people 100% because it's a freaking 15% mitigation. Temperance is also phenomenal. No commitment, OGCD, that with mitigation, it's just a lot of power. Completely free to you, no DPS on GCD required from you. It's phenomenal. Also, free revives with Thin Air is great. White Mage, I've had no problem powerhousing, bulldozing my way through the most disgusting healing situations in Party Finder, period. And this kind of gets me to saying White Mage is easily the best healer to take into PF. There is zero doubt, zero to hesitation in my mind. S tier 100%. Now for the Scholar, I'd put it in A tier. Obviously it's a great healer. It gives away less of its DPS to others in Chain Stratagem than Astrologian does, and it has a lot of wiggle room with its Aether Flow system. In PF, I generally err on the side of conserving my Aether Flow and be more defensive more often than I'd like. I find myself happy that I played defensively because I didn't use Energy Drain, instead used it somewhere else. Like, quite literally, that's the way to put it. Way more often than I'd have liked to admit in a video, Excogitation has saved many a PF clear party because the DPS stood in bad. I saw an Excog, I protract Excog them, and I've joined where DPS was about to get creamed, and I will in general prefer my Excog, my Lustrate over 100 potency Energy Drain. No apologies for that. In a unplanned PF group, that's kind of what you have to do as a healer. But what can often be frustrating though is you can often be forced to run out of tools to heal. Sage obviously has this too before we even get into the Sage. But sometimes you can be left gasping for air going, no more incoming stuff, please, please, no more. But even with Dissipation, which is a brilliant ability, people somehow still, after all my ranting about how great it is, hate on it. But Dissipation is a great kick when you truly run out of gas, as PF is wont to do. But it has so many drawbacks in it that in an unplanned setting, it really can mess up cooldowns, even though I'm cognizant, okay, you want your fairy cooldowns out, you want those cooldowns rolling so they're back up when you get out of there. Like, obviously I understand that after 10 bloody years, I'd hope so. But, well, I guess it was introduced in Heavensward, whatever, moving on. But this will also deny you fairy presence, which can totally suck in PF situation. Another thing that sucks is many Party Finder groups just don't know what to do with Expedient, and unfortunately sometimes the speed boost can come as an unexpected surprise at the worst possible times to some people, and leads to someone running into a wall or overshooting the P5S Devour mechanic. Unfortunately, I've seen that firsthand. If you used it there for Devour, I personally don't use it there often myself, because frankly Devour I now see as a big personal responsibility mechanic that you can walk for. Expedient more often than not seems to be a detriment. Many people are just familiar with walking it, so throw in Expedient and mess them up so that they run into Devour and become a snack. Right now my current thought pattern is let's avoid using Expedient there. Instead I'm preferring it for raw mitigation elsewhere in PF groups. But another problem with Scholar is in PF how many mechanics actually call for full critless spread. Not many. They exist, absolutely, I love them. And as much as I do love the big F-off mechanic barriers, oftentimes you're better served by not shielding and letting health trickle up slowly, especially if you have a more eager co-healer. So Scholar is great, but these little things are gonna suck, and they do stand out after a while in PF. These are unfortunate downfalls of Scholar, but obviously it's still A tier. It's still really good. Like Expedient in PF in the situations where it's warranted and very much expected, it's great, but I have had no luck with Devour. I've tried so many clear groups and then I see people run like further ahead or like weird positions and I'm like, oh my god, I hate the Expedient here. Now for Sage, I'm putting Sage at the A tier, just a touch above Scholar. Same problems. I found a co-healer not helping me out, where I've been left there gasping for any resources, trying to pull up healing from anywhere, but Sage simply has a stronger kit for cocooning tanks, like the Tarkol I prefer over XCOG, especially this tier, the vast majority of the time, because I'm more worried about you dying to the spike than recovery later. How to say that? Like, it's easier to make you recover if you survive the spike than if you die to the spike. And I'm noticing a lot of tanks are cooldown of adverse. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but that's how I'm putting it. Also, Sage excels at offsetting large sets of damage. Heima, Panheim are game-changing for the right mechanics. Numa being one of those big burst recovery tools from emergency healing, that is far better than Fey Blessing and PF. I can tell you that. It's served me really well, Numa. Those emergencies also in PF totally do happen. Holos is a big immediate flip off to damage, giving not only the mitigation but also that big barrier, that 600 potency between the heal and the shield. It's really great. Also Fizzes, especially with a decent co-healer, makes that co-healer just do a lot on a low cooldown. Fizzes plus Collective Unconscious, for an example, that alone, those two buttons often caps party health if you're patient. Just heal over time is so wasted in this game in general in PF. Let your HOTS work, unless there's like incoming spike of damage. Just like if you have 20 seconds before the next AoE, why not let them work? Another thing about Sage that I also like is because the Holos rework means now have two buttons for AoE barriers without requiring a single GCD. Obviously you have Panheima, you obviously have Holos, where crit low spread can be a little harder to justify on Scholar. It's not hard to justify using a simple off GCD to toss out some mitigation. Oh god, dare I forget Icarus. Mobility on a healer to reposition quickly, PF luxury. Static luxury. I just love it in general. Obviously, you'd rather not have to use it in many situations, but oftentimes I found myself just using it because it's just convenient. It's hard to not keep using Sage and PF because of this ability. I can cast Rescue and Icarus and just reposition the living heck out of PF. God, I love this ability. Also, being able to cast barriers on the fly is revolutionary in PF, no offense, but PF sometimes is a complete disaster, and sometimes to such a degree of me getting off barriers a moment sooner while actively running at the DPS has more often than I'd like to admit actually saved them. Oh yeah, and forgive me, but I forgot that Sage can also like choose which target gets its persistent cardio effect, the healing effect. No more Feyre or Garrison where the healing is going. No, Eos and Celine, I'm wanting you to specifically heal the tank. And Fey Union is, I wish it was an unlimited resource sometimes, but I get it. It's also the heal boost, but so whatever. But another thing is Krasis, and freaking spectacular, especially for these horrifically painful damage over time effects. 20% healing amp is just great to flatten out the damage, though I'd be a liar if I didn't say I love Scholar's Protractions, extra 10% health padding. That has saved lives. Like I said before, that spike damage, if survived, I can heal up. So I do gotta say, Protraction has its perks too. PF is wild, guys. But largely for barrier healers, I'm just gonna do a wrap up here, I guess, of them. They're basically the same tier in PF, but I'm gonna give the way into Sage kind of. I feel really confident saying that, actually. There's like zero doubt in my mind when I say Sage, I think is a little bit better. It's in the same tier as Scholar, but a little bit more. So that, just for all the reasons I listed before. And so now we've really arrived at the end of my healer power rankings and explanations of why I gave them that. Healers in coordinated groups, though, to be clear, are undeniably all super incredibly capable, and I'd give them all an S tier. They're all stellar, even if that's... and stars are more Astrologian's thing. Anyone saying Scholar is just too much better than Sage or whatever, I don't think has really given Sage a fair chance, because Sage has so much to it. But in the wild, outside of coordination, White Mage is king, followed by Sage, then Scholar, who, while great, can find themselves a little bit out of breath. Both Sage and Scholar can find that, but I think Sage has a little bit more PFE tools to help it out. And then lastly, Astrologian, who is mind-blowingly powerful, but in the wild for sure is having a little bit of a harder time, especially with a bad co-healer. Maybe not a bad co-healer, but a co-healer that just doesn't understand what the Astro is trying to do. Which, to be fair, if you haven't played Ast, can sometimes be a little tricky to read what they're doing. It's like, if you don't know what it does, it's like, okay, the floor is glowing. That's nice. Okay, I'm gonna just cast Medica. Anyhow, I hope this helps you all, and for sure, this is the longest power ranking video I've had, because healers just have so much interplay with Party Finder. PvP against your teammates on top of the PvE aspect, it's wild. Anyhow, it'd make me super happy if you dropped a healer love on that button, and can't hit that subscribe button. Well, that's it for this one. I hope you all have a brilliantly great day.